What is going on YouTube? It is your boy MrBaboon. I'm back with a reaction video. This time we have Napoleon in Egypt, Part 4. So we're going to react to this. The channel and the video link will be down below in the description. If you guys want to check it out, you guys can. With that being said, I think we are going to go ahead and jump right into this.
Cairo, October 23rd, 1798. It's the morning after the Cairo revolt, and the city still resists. French soldiers are storming the barricaded alleys, clearing them with musket volleys and cannons.
Damn.
The city reels, and the French count casualties. While Napoleon officially claims only 21 French have died, that's a bit laughable. The true number is around 300.
Damn.
Among them are a group of military engineers targeted for their role in attempting to reshape the city.
Ooh.
Headless bodies float down the Nile. Executed rebels dumped there on Napoleon's orders. French soldiers dump out sacks of severed heads into Cairo's main square. And 6,000 rebels have died in what increasingly resembles a massacre. The sight makes some of Napoleon's officers sick. They had come to bring enlightenment to Egypt, yet Napoleon is increasingly descending into darkness.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Yeah, that's exactly.
Would you like to see the final episode of this series right after watching this one? Well, now with Nebula first, you totally can. Ooh, and stick around for a teaser of Ep 5 after this episode. But hold on, we're getting ahead of ourselves. The revolt of Cairo occurred due to a number of complicated factors, but some of the most obvious were Napoleon's attempt to remake Egyptian society along a French Enlightenment model. The religious equality laws of the French Republic, for example, lifted prohibitions on non-Muslims, thus allowing Christians and Jews to wear turbans, carry swords, and ride horses. Similarly, women were allowed to go unveiled. And the sight of barefaced Egyptian women attending parties and drinking wine with French officers, including some high-class former wives of Mamelukes and daughters of prominent families, raised fury. French soldiers also forced themselves on local women with regularity, sometimes even forming gangs to break into harems in scenes of mass assault. Also, Napoleon's attempt to architecturally transform Cairo with streetlights and carriage routes ran roughshod over local people, as engineers demolished saints' tombs and mosques to widen the streets so they could accommodate carriages. In addition, the neighborhood gates they destroyed in order to aid policing actually caused a crime wave, since thieves and gangs now had easy access. But the Egyptian chronicler and diarist, Abdul Rahman al-Jabarti, to whom we owe most of our understanding of the Egyptian side of the French occupation, claimed that the true cause of the revolt was political. Napoleon's institution of heavy property taxes, usually collected by Coptic Christians and brutally enforced by French troops, were the largest factor. Even so, not every district in Cairo rose, and many prominent citizens, like al-Jabarti, considered the rebellion foolish given French military strength. And
Oh, my bad. I don't even think I muted the mic in time.
he was right, for Napoleon had crushed the rebels with extreme violence. In addition to the mass executions of rebel holdouts, he employed torture to discover ringleaders and torched villages that participated. And the French referred to these rebels with a linguistic term, insurgents, that would become a permanent fixture of the Western military lexicon. But for all of his brutality, Napoleon knew he could not afford to be indiscriminate in his campaign. If he killed every influential person that had participated, all of Cairo would rise, and he couldn't defeat a population of 600,000. So calling in his Grand Council of Clerics, men he'd hoped to lead Egypt for him, he first made them swear that they hadn't been aware of the rising, then pressured them into issuing a statement that he'd written. This statement blamed the revolt on outside forces, causing discord between the French and Egyptians, while at the same time lionizing Napoleon in his usual propagandistic style. "The beneficent and invisible hand of God," it read, "came to calm the sedition. By the council's intercession with the commander-in-chief Bonaparte, the evils that would have ensued were averted. He prevented the troops from burning the city and from pillaging, for he is full of wisdom, beneficent, and merciful toward the Muslims."
God, right there, they kind of look like they're afraid of him.
He is the particular protector of the poor, and without him, all of the inhabitants of Cairo would no longer exist. Yeah, see, despite stamping out an open resistance in Cairo, Napoleon was still deeply insecure, both personally and militarily. On the military front, his generals had finally pushed Murad Bey out of Upper Egypt, but not before he'd received terrible news from the Ottoman Sultan Selim III. French diplomats had flooded the Ottoman court, trying to convince Selim to recognize French rule over Egypt in exchange for rice shipments. Instead, the Sultan had joined an alliance with Britain and Russia, forming a second coalition against France, and had declared a jihad against French forces in Egypt. So just as Murad Bey was on the ropes, foreign jihadis from Arabia and Syria began to reinforce his ranks. Likewise, the Ottoman governor of Acre, who gained the title of the Butcher for his excellence in pursuing rebels on the Ottomans' behalf, not only rebuffed Napoleon's attempt to get him to switch sides, but accepted British aid. Meanwhile, rumors flew that France was about to go to war with its neighbors again. French troops, already deeply unhappy in Egypt, began to fear that their homeland was at risk while they were stranded in a losing colonial venture. And none were more frightened than Bonaparte. Should France be invaded, he would need to be there to defend it and advance his position. And just as it seemed things couldn't get any worse, he received news that the Ottomans were planning a two-pronged assault on Egypt. The first would marshal at Acre and cross the desert, with another landing near Alexandria. Napoleon acted at once, hoping that if he moved fast enough, he could take Acre and turn back the first force before circling back to defeat the second. So marshaling his army, including an experimental unit of camel-mounted cavalry, he pushed his troops on another punishing march across the desert.
Now streaming on Hulu. What are they doing letting us in a place that's nice?
The first towns fell easily. Then came the port of Jaffa, which responded to Napoleon's request to surrender by decapitating.
Did you guys remember? He already lost like a lot of men already. Going through the desert already. He's already lost a lot. So, I wonder if it's going to be like that again.
Decapitating the French messenger and displaying his head on the wall. Angered at the city's resistance, when his troops finally breached the walls on March 7th, he allowed them to sack the city for 2 days, initiating scenes of pillaging, torture, and sexual assault. At the culmination, he ordered 3,000 captured Ottoman soldiers to be led to the beach, where soldiers systematically murdered them with volleys, bayonets, and cavalry charges. The horror of the sack upset more of his own officers, one of whom admitted they would not have performed such mass executions on a European enemy. Napoleon's intent was to terrify the Acre garrison into surrendering, and it did not work. British engineers had reinforced the city's 8-foot thick medieval walls with earthen slopes to deflect cannon shot. In truth, the siege was over before it began. The British Navy captured the ships carrying the French siege artillery, making the walls impossible to breach, but Bonaparte still threw men at the defenses for 60 days. Despite utterly defeating the Ottoman army sent to reinforce the city and ultimately invade Egypt, Acre itself seemed impregnable. Then, twin disasters struck. First, a bubonic plague outbreak struck the French camp, and second, a British officer sent newspapers across the line informing Napoleon that France was at war with the Second Coalition and had already suffered massive losses in Germany and Italy. Napoleon cut his losses and ended his Syrian campaign. Later, while in exile, he would recall that he dreamed of making Acre a home base for pushing into India to found an Asian empire, succeeding where Alexander had failed. He had visions, he said, of riding east on an elephant, a turban on his head, and carrying a new version of the Quran, which he'd rewrite to suit his purposes. Heck, maybe he would have founded his own religion. He'd even taken small steps on that path, releasing statements hinting that he was the Mahdi, a messianic figure in folk Islam, said to bring justice at the end times. These odd pronouncements claimed he could read minds to discover traitors and rebels, and that God had sent him to directly destroy the Mamelukes, papists, and bring Egypt back to its antique glory. Real cult leader energy going on there. But that Asian empire was only a bitter dream when the army of the Orient turned back towards Egypt, walking across the desert because they'd eaten most of their horses during the siege. Bonaparte walked too, though occasionally he rode a camel. At times, he quietly ordered that plague victims, no longer able to travel and sure to die, be euthanized with opium so the pursuing Bedouin would not torture them. Though despite that grim march, he did return to Cairo in a triumphal procession, declaring victory in turning back the Ottoman army that had tried to come to Acre. Then within weeks, when the Second Ottoman force landed near Alexandria, he routed them in what was more of a massacre than a true battle. Yet even despite that last victory, Bonaparte now knew the French Republic of Egypt had no future. There was really no chance of holding it, and the propaganda value of his great conquest would never be higher than it was right now. Only gradual defeat awaited the army here, and he'd really prefer others be blamed for that. But still, he did have duties in Egypt and no orders to return to France. So, he did the only responsible thing a leader in his position could ever do.
What?
Told his generals he was carrying out a countrywide inspection, quietly boarded a ship, and ditched them, leaving
What?
General Kleber only a letter saying, essentially, "Hey, you're in charge now, pal. Good luck. You're gonna need it."
What?
Now, you might be wondering how that decision worked out for, say, Napoleon, Egypt, and France. Well, if so, you are in luck, because the final episode of our Napoleon in Egypt series is live right now over on Nebula. Quelle joie!
So, I think that's the end of this episode. Looks like it, yeah. So Napoleon has, to me at least, the last couple of episodes that we watched, well, part 1, part 2, and part 3, and then this one, to me it just seems like Napoleon has taken a lot of L's more than W's. You know what I mean? Or is that just me thinking? Let me know down below in the comments. That's going to do it for this video. Make sure you guys do like, turn on post notification, or like, ring the bell, subscribe, all that good stuff. Comment down below. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are. If Napoleon is just suffering a lot of L's. Make sure you guys do check out Extra History's channel. I will have the link down below if you guys want to check that out. Make sure you guys do go check him out, subscribe, all that good stuff. His videos are really well done. I really enjoy reacting to his videos and stuff. Even though I feel like sometimes I don't really have a whole lot to say, you know? But let me know. I will see you guys in the next one. Positivity is key, motivation is key, happiness is key. I'll see you guys in the next video. You guys stay safe, watch out for each other. See you guys in the next one.